G'day, my name is John, and this is another video in a series of videos that I'm doing on these Chinese diesel air heaters. And the subject of today's video is this, and it's what the Chinese call an all-in-one heater. So we'll be having a look at the different suppliers in this first up. Okay, if you're interested in buying one of these heaters, I need to bring this to your attention. So if you have a look at this one here, this one I bought last year. So it came from Hong Kong, and you see here auto air 12 volt 5000 watt parking heater, so with an LCD monitor. Now take a particular look at this, and I'll explain that a little bit more. So it came from Hong Kong last year, probably took maybe 5 weeks delivery, and I'll show you what I got. A bit of wiring, a bit of intake hose, a bit of bent outlet hose, an intake silencer, some hose clamps and a few cable ties, and an outlet deflector. So, and this is what I got in the box. Well, a bit worried when I opened that because it looks like there's nothing inside. So when I open it up, that's what I got. Nothing. Well, I got a shell, but no heater, no fuel tank, no nothing. Right, I thought. So I went back to the order and had a look at it, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so after finding just a bare shell in the box, I went back and checked again, and yes, it did say, 5000 watt heater. Okay, so I went back through the paperwork, and I looked up where I purchased the heater, and it definitely said a heater. But when I went further on and looked up the description, here I see accessories, and then when you look down here further, you find that you just get a shell and you get a controller and you get a couple of hoses, but you get no fuel tank and you certainly get no heater. So I want people to be aware that if you're going to order one of these, just be very careful. And I'll just show you that ad again. Okay, here's the ad again. So if you see something like this, like an open case, then read the description very carefully, because that's all you'll get. You'll just get the casings. Now, I see now they've got an Australian warehouse, exactly the same sort of photographic ad, but at this time, this people here put accessories, and well, they want $160 odd or something like that. So just be aware of that. Now, recently I bought this one. Now, notice the difference in the ad. So when this arrived, I actually got a heater, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, this is the second heater arrived. It came from an Australian warehouse, and it came in about 5 working days. It came with exactly the same accessories, a bent and buckled outlet hose. Must be common on these because probably on the packaging they're packed on the top. The same accessories here and here and here. And the wiring. So the stuff was packed, but at least this time I got a proper heater. I'll pull it out and I'll come back. Alright, unlike this one was just a bare shell, this one came with handles, a fuel tank. It came with a nice LED controller and a 4-button remote. Alright, we'll just have a look inside. So you pull these levers off. I'll just pull them off and I'll come back. Okay, I've undone the clips. I needed 2 hands. Now before you can take the case off, you've got to remove the fuel cap, and then the case just comes off. Okay, so the fuel tank is not attached, but I suppose it doesn't matter when it's in the case. Okay, we've got a fuel pump. We've got the power connection leads. Alright, okay, we've got a problem here for a start. There's no filter. Okay, there's no filter at all. So I'll have to have a look at that. Now, it's got an exhaust. But I can see immediately an issue with the exhaust, because when you look underneath it, it's only got about 50 millimeters here. There's no way that you can put that exhaust on and get a really tight bend through here, and there's no filter on the intake. So, all right, I'll have to modify this a little bit. It's not used out of the box. I'll have to put an air filter on there. I'll have to make some means of doing that, and I'll also have to make some means of attaching this exhaust and being able to get out, because there's not enough. I'll have to put some blocks of wood here or something like that. Okay, I'll work on this and we'll come back when I've got it all set up. Okay, here we are back to the all-in-one heater, and the first thing I've got to look at is how to mount the exhaust pipe on here and the air intake pipe on here. Now the exhaust pipe will come through here and have some sort of movement, but there's no way in the world I can make a 90-degree bend in this exhaust pipe and fit it out through here. So what I'll do is I'll use a copper elbow, and I'll mount the copper elbow on there, and then I'll have to work out some method of taking. So I'll probably, to try and keep it away from the exhaust, I'll mount the intake side here, and I'll put the air filter probably somewhere over here. But as you can see, it's too deep for this little bit. This is only probably about 50 odd millimeter. So what I think I'll do is I'll mount some blocks of timber on the back here, so that will give it a wooden mounting, and then I can put some rubber feet or something like that on. Now remember, if you've got one of these machines, they sell it as an intake silencer, but they're not a good silencer. The main reason is because the air has to come out and around, and it's got baffles in here. The noise of the air going in and around the internal baffles here, as you know, when you run air around a restriction, it creates more noise. So the extra noise coming through here is not absorbed by the foam in the silencer part. The other issue is this is not a filter, and this won't stop bugs and cockroaches or geckos or something like that getting in. Now, one issue we have in Australia, and I don't know about other countries, but we have a little lizard called a gecko, and it creates a lot of havoc in a lot of homes, particularly with air conditioners. It gets into the air conditioners and shorts out the circuit board, and the geckos will come up in here, and they'll get up into this nice warm area when it's cool, and then when you turn it on, they're going to get fried. Okay, I'll have a play with that, and then I'll come back and show you what solutions I've come up with. Okay, what I've come up with here is I've got two copper 90-degree bends, and I've cut slots in the part that's going to go here, and then I've got a couple of bits of 25mm copper pipe which I'll push in the end. So I'll join this, that will come here. I've cut the exhaust pipe. Now I've chosen to leave this on the outlet so I can join in easily, and chosen to cut this. Now unfortunately it won't go over simply over the copper pipe, So what I've had to do is I've had to get a pair of pliers and flatten it out in here, so that will then go over the copper pipe. And I've also got 2 blocks of 1.5" or 30mm timber, and I'll mount that on there, and that will give me an extra 1.5" or 30 odd millimeter clearance. It will take the exhaust away from the floor a little bit, and it'll give room to put this air in the intake filter in. Alright, I'll get working on that and I'll come back. Okay, I've put these 90-degree bends in, and it's a pretty tight fit here. I don't know whether by design or by choice. They've got a slot here which allows you to get in here and tighten up the clamps, but there's very little room here. I'll have to get in here and put some lagging in here because we don't want this hot exhaust burning here. So I put these little legs on, they lift it up a little bit. I'll have the intake filter here, so I'll just try and lag this a little bit and provide protection here. I'll test run it first, and when it works all right, I'll take this off and then I'll glue these in with some exhaust cement. Okay, I've got it all connected up. I've got the fuel line here protected underneath the intake line here. I've got the exhaust line here lagged temporarily. I can't get any more in without opening this hole up, so I'll test run it first and then I'll open the hole up. I'll take the whole thing apart, I'll lag the exhaust, and then I'll put it back with some exhaust gasket cement and lock it all in. So I've got the intake air filter here, the fuel line is protected. Okay, now I'll move on to the other parts. It's certainly not a turnkey operation. Okay, I've installed the fuel filter there. We've got the fuel pump here. The other thing I want to show is that what you've got here is you've got the fuel pickup here about 20mm from the bottom. So this tank holds about 5 litres. So with this so far up from the bottom, you've actually only got about 4 litres of usable fuel in this tank. Now the next thing is here. Now there's a fuse in here in this line, but there's no protection in the incoming line. So if this shuts over here or the wire comes off, you're going to have unfused wire. So I'll have to put a fuse on the positive line here, going to the battery or to the power supply. So that'll be the next job. Okay, I've put 1 litre of diesel in, and the hole here is still just covered now, or just ready to suck air. So you've wasted 1 litre out of the 5 litre container, which is non-usable. But what you could do is you could probably mount this up on an angle. It doesn't have to be much, and then you'd put the fuel to the back and you get a better go at it. The other thing here that I need to do, the controller is only just stuck on with some poor quality double-sided tape. So I'll get some better tape and I'll stick that on there. Alright, I'll continue on and I'll fill it up and we'll see if we can get ready for a bench test. Okay, I've installed the filter here. I've manually sucked it up. I took it off here, manually sucked up the fuel to fill the fuel filter. So I'm not running this pump dry because it uses the diesel to lubricate the pump. But from here on, I can use the priming function of the controller itself. So we push these 2 buttons down here, and then this one, and then the pump will come on and now manually prime. Okay, ready to start. So it'll start coming on. The 2 little buttons there will start to flash. The pump will start to come on, and it'll run like that for a little bit, and then it'll turn the glow plug on, and then the fuel pump So I'll come back. Okay, the heater is up and running. Most of the air bubbles are coming out. I'm not real happy with this, that you've only got a 5 litre tank and 1 litre is non-usable. So what I'll do is I'll increase the I suppose the height of this at the front, and so when I lift it up, you know, I can take maybe only an inch or so, and it'll be enough to get much more fuel out of the little tank there. Okay, what I'll do now is I'll just put it all together and bench test it. Okay, I'm all set up for a bench test on what the Chinese call an all-in-one heater. The wiring is connected. Now, there is no fuse in this line here. There's a fuse inside here, but it doesn't protect any incoming wire here. So I put a fuse down here near the battery. And the other thing here, this wire is really on the minimum size for 10 amp, because this will draw 8 to 10 amps on start up and start down. So you really, if you're going to install it yourself, I'd be looking at heavier wire than this, and make sure you put a fuse in it. Okay, the ambient temperature is 25. I've turned this on and I've put this on the inside here as per normal. So we'll start it up. Take a few minutes to get up and running, and so I'll come back. Okay, I'm up and running at a manual rate of 1.6 Hertz or 1.6 cycles per second with the fuel pump. We've got an ambient temperature of 26.6. Quite a good outlet temperature here of 93 degrees. So we've got a very good increase in temperature there, which is the thing we're interested in, is the difference between the air coming in here and the air coming out here. We're drawing 0.6 of an amp at that run, which is only about 60 decibels of noise. Okay, I'll just run that up. So run it up manually. A bit hard to see there, unfortunately. I'll do that and I'll come back. Okay, I'm running at a manual setting of 3 Hertz now. We're running at about 105 degrees Celsius outlet, which is 500 millimeters from the end there. We've got an ambient temperature of 26.8, so we call that 27, so make it that 106 on 27. We're running 1.1 amps. Okay, we'll run it up to higher settings and we'll come back. Okay, I'm running a little heater at full boost, which is 5.5 Hertz, and it's running quite hot. It's very close to automatic shutdown, running what, 116, 117 degrees there. So another 1 or 2 degrees and it'll shut itself down. We've got an ambient of say 27.5, 28. So the maximum you can run any of these heaters on is 40 degrees. So we're nearly up to 30 degrees as it is. We're drawing much the same as all the other heaters at about 3.3 amps or 3.2 amps. So we've got say 28 over 116. So putting out a lot of heat for this little heater. In fact, it's very much the same as every other heater. Well, that's what it's got inside. But the only real difference that I've got is the case temperature is a fair bit higher than the case temperature of all the other heaters. So I think that is because on these other heaters, when I was testing these, they had plenty of airspace around them. Excuse me. But the heater in here doesn't have any airspace, so it's just relying on, well, really nothing, probably a little bit of sucking from here. So what I found is I can't put the anerometer on here because of the grill, and what is happening is it's not only sucking in air from here, but it's sucking in air around the case and pulling it in. So that is good and bad, I suppose. It doesn't really matter, but what it is pulling the air from around and up underneath the heater, so it's cooling the outside of the heater inside. But looking really good. I've been running this for I don't know, about 10 minutes now at 116, and it's stabilized, so it's not going to shut down at this stage. So what do I think of them? Look, I think they're an excellent little portable heater. They're not a turnkey operation, so you have to do a little bit of work to get the combustion chamber inlet and the combustion chamber exhaust set up. As I said before, this wire is too small for this heater, and it needs a fuse close to the battery. The other thing that you can run with these, you can run a power supply. This one here I've got it as a 12.5 amp DC power supply. It's fairly important that you get something above 10 amps, because these heaters, although when they're running they probably pull about 1 to 3 amps, like this is pulling now 3 and a bit amps on full power or boost power, but when it shuts down or starts up, the glow plug comes on. It's the glow plug and the fan that pulls about 8 to 10 amps. So you need a power supply that pulls 8 to 10 amps. Okay, well, that's all I've got really at the moment on these what the Chinese call all-in-one heaters, and I hope that's of some interest to you. Thank you for watching.